Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our IMI Global webinar series. Today, I have Alexis Budde, and she is one of our ranch CVSs. And her and I today are going to talk a little bit about the ranch verification process and answer some frequently asked questions that we get from incoming producers that have been with us and are looking to renew, and then just kind of going over some things to help better equip you guys for the verification. So Alexis, if you would kind of introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what your role is here at IMI Global.
Thanks, Ashley. My name is Alexis Budde, as she said, and I am a regional CVS. I handle some of our western states, our West Coast, and Idaho, Utah, and Nevada. And I have been with IMI Global for just over a year now.
Awesome. Okay, Alexis, so this first section, I'm going to ask you some questions about the verification process. How long does the process take from start to finish?
Ideally, for the verification process with us, we like to say on average it takes about 4 to 6 weeks from start to finish. So that would be from the time that enrollment documents are sent back to your CVS to the time the audit happens, and then once you've received your final approval documents from your ranch CVS.
Great. What paperwork does a producer need to fill out, and how should they fill it out?
So the most important documents that your CVS will send you to start the process would be the Farm and Ranch Verification Plan, and then the IMI Global Audit Services Agreement, which is our contract. So that verification plan just gives us a little bit more information about your operation, and the CVS will review that just to make sure that you're a great fit for our programs. And then that contract will list out the pricing for our verification services. And so those will be needed to be returned back to us. And you can fill those out either on your computer. You can type into our forms and you can sign our forms with a DocuSign tool, or you can fill them out just handwriting them, print them out, handwrite them, and then send them back to our office. So you can either scan and email them, fax them in, or you can just mail them normally to our office.
Great. So after they filled out the paperwork and gotten that all to you, next is the audit process. So can you kind of talk about what that process entails and about how long an audit will take?
Yeah, so once we get that paperwork back, we'll look through the application just one more time just to look through everything before we send it on over to the auditor. So once we send it to the auditor, they work on scheduling the on-site verification with you. So they will contact the producer, pick a good day and time, and then during that audit, they want to go to the ranch of origin. They'll do a records review with the producer, and then they'll also want to see program cattle. So they're looking for any IDs, brands, visual tags while on program cattle, and then those records would need to be reviewed. So length of time kind of depends, you know, on the vastness of the operation, what programs that you're applying for. So we like to say anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. It can go pretty quick, just depending on where cattle are and how organized records are, and then if we have to kind of travel a little bit to go see cattle, it might take a couple more hours.
So you referenced it very briefly in that last question, but what would a producer need for the audit? So you referenced ranch records. Can you kind of talk about what those ranch records are and what's necessary for the producer to have maybe ready to go prior to the audit taking place?
Yeah, that's a good question. So just to kind of start off with some simple records. So for the source and age verification, we like to see head count support for the cow herd. So how many cows are in your current cow herd? And so that could be like preg check numbers, inventories or tallies that a producer might have, or some type of vaccine receipts, just to show how many head are in the herd. And then we like to see calving records. So we, at minimum, would like a first calf born date of the calving season and a last calf born date of the calving season. And so that can be written in a calendar, in a red book, in a day journal, wherever those records are kept. And then moving on into Nhtc and verified natural, we like to see feed labels. And so feed labels for salt, mineral, protein tubs, anything like that, any manufactured feed products will need a feed label. And it has to list the ingredients on it. And then to accompany a feed label, we like to see an Nhtc letter of guarantee from the feed manufacturing company. And so that letter just states that there's no hormone growth hormones within the feed during the manufacturing process. And so the CVS can assist with getting those Nhtc letters if the producer requests it. But at the end of the day, it would be the producer's responsibility to get that. And so we can assist if needed. And then if there's any hormones on site, like CEDARS or Lutulase or MGA, we would just like to make sure that you guys have an inventory record, and the auditor can help set up that inventory list with you when they're on site and get it into your ranch manual for you. So that can be, they can help you with that on site. And then for verified natural, if you have any treated animals for program cattle, we would like to see treatment records. And so that would just include, what the ID of the animal or when you treated it, and then the product maybe. So if you have those records, those would be good to see on site. So yeah, those are the main records that would be helpful to have ahead of time for the auditor.
So let's just say hypothetically, a producer maybe gets their feed product from their local co-op, but that feed product isn't necessarily manufactured by that co-op. Can that Nhtc letter of guarantee come from the co-op, or does it have to come from the actual company that physically makes the feedstuffs?
Yeah, good question. So the Nhtc letter does have to come from the feed manufacturing company. So oftentimes you can contact the local co-op and ask where they're sourcing their products from, or who makes their custom mixes for them or their minerals for them. And then they might be able to contact that manufacturer, or the producer can contact that manufacturer to get that Nhtc letter from them.
Great. So last question when it comes to the verification process, a lot of times producers want to know how good their certification is for, so how long they can have it, and then how often do they have to have an audit?
Yeah, so for our verification programs, they renew on an annual cycle, so they're good for 12 months. So say you got an audit done today, we would contact you a year from this date. Normally we like to reach out about a month beforehand just to let the producer know, hey, you're up for renewal. Would you like to renew this year? And so we would do it on an annual yearly basis.
Great. So you've kind of touched on it a little bit during the verification process, but I'd like to kind of go into talking about program cattle specifically. So you talked about calving records. A lot of times producers want to know, do I need individual date of birth if I'm not calving year round?
Yeah, good question. So for dates of birth, you don't have to keep every single calf birth date for a calving season. The most important records are the first calf born date to establish the beginning of the calving season, and then that last calf born date to establish the end. So oftentimes we can use a branding date as the last calf born date, but it does have to be a record. So a record does need to be kept for the last calf born date to establish the calving season.
So I calve a producer calves, has 2 or 3 seasons throughout the year, how does that look different for them versus somebody who only maybe calves once a year?
Yeah, so kind of the same principles apply. So a beginning and an end, a definite beginning and end to the calving season. Sometimes producers get a little creative and they order EID tags. They order green for spring and yellow for fall, and just to keep themselves organized, or they are sure to report the EID numbers for each calving group to the CVS so that we allocate the tags properly, because the EID tags are tied to a first calf born day of that calving season. So we want to make sure that that's accurate, but it's definitely doable. Just have to have the correct records in place for calving.
Cool. Now on the other foot, my next question is talking about year-round calving. Can a year-round calver still qualify for the age verification? And what does that kind of look like for them in regards to record keeping and getting that verification?
Yeah, so if you do calve year-round, you definitely can do age verification. We would just need you to keep every calf when they were born, every date that they were born, and then we would tie the EID tag number to that individual birth date. So we have to know which EID tag went into which calf to tie it directly back to their birth date.
Great. So kind of switching gears, say a producer still has some yearlings on site, can they get them verified as well?
Yes, so the most important thing is that the producer has the calving records for that yearling group, all of the feed products that were given to that group if they have changed from that year to this year. And so we'll just need all of the records pertaining to that calving group. But yes, we can do a yearling group at the same time we do their newer calves.
And one final question about program calves. So say part of the calving group has been shipped off the ranch location, can they still get verified?
If part of the calving group has been shipped off and they didn't receive EID tags prior to them leaving the operation, they won't be able to be approved for our programs. The EID is the most important part for our verification programs, just to show traceability. And so we would have to exclude that portion of the calving group. But the calving group that hasn't left the ranch of origin or the producer's management can still be verified. They can have EID tags placed and then ship with the proper shipping documentation.
So that actually segues into the next section, which is talking about shipping documents. So real common question we get, on a day-to-day basis is, what documents does a producer actually need for shipping?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there are 2 main documents that are needed for shipping that are provided to you by your ranch CVS. So the first is the ranch shipping certificate. That lists out the ranch, the number of head that they're approved for, the date they were approved, and then the verification claims that they have been approved for. On the bottom side of that shipping certificate, it lists out the number of head, the date, and where the cattle are going. And so there's spaces for the producer to write in that information the day of shipping. And then the next piece that they would need for shipping would be their tag manifest that lists out all of the tags that have been approved under our programs. And so for shipping, we like to make sure that the producer keeps a copy of their ranch shipping certificate and a copy of their tag manifest once it's been filled out, and then keep a copy for themselves and then send a copy with the truck.
So that being said, do they need, if they've got multiple trucks coming in to haul calves off, do they need to send shipping documents with each individual truck, or can it just go with one truck and then once they get to their destination, the one piece of paper is good?
So that depends. So if all of the trucks are going to the same location, the same feed yard or backgrounder, one set of paperwork will be sufficient for that group being shipped that day. If they're shipping on multiple days, each truck will need their shipping documentation. And then another example would be if steers are going one way, heifers are going another. That day they're going to two separate destinations. Each truck will need to have a copy of how many head are being shipped in that load and going to that destination.
Okay, so say a producer ordered more tags and was going to send more cattle than what they had anticipated originally. So at that point, do they need updated shipping documents?
Yes, so we would like to administer new shipping or updated shipping documentation just to show that they have been approved for more head to be shipped under our programs. And then the manifest will then include those new tags that have been ordered. So as long as they ship the correct amount of cattle given their cow head count support, then we can approve more tags and give them some updated shipping documents.
Great. Now, one that I know at times you see quite often is a producer calling in saying that they either can't find the email that the shipping documents were sent in, or they maybe accidentally deleted it or something happened. Can shipping documents be resent?
Yes, they can. So the first time that we send out shipping documents, we like to do it over email. It's faster, it's immediate, and the producer can then print out multiple copies of a shipping certificate and tag manifest if they need to. And then if they need it resent, we can always resend it via email. And then if they request it, we can also mail them the documents or fax. So whatever is easiest, but they can be resent as long as they're shipping cattle under their current certification with us.
Great, thank you. Okay, last section we're going to kind of touch on specifically talks about our non-hormone treated cattle program and our verified natural program. So there's some specific requirements that we have to follow, and I know that these are just some really specific questions that we get time to time in regards to that. So the first one is, do you need to know all of the vaccines that program cattle have received for Nhtc and verified natural, and what's the difference between the vaccines and the antibiotics?
So we don't need to know the vaccinations that cattle received for Nhtc and verified natural. For Nhtc, we're strictly looking at any hormone growth promotants on site, like any implants or CEDARs, like I'd mentioned earlier. And then for antibiotics, just knowing if there's any on site. And so for vaccinations, it's kind of a different process for a cow-calf operation. And so it's not needed for those two specific programs, but we do have other verification programs that do take a closer look at vaccination programs that producers could possibly earn a premium for if they chose to enroll in those. But specifically for Nhtc and verified natural, we don't need to look at the vaccination protocol.
Great. So another common question is if they have prohibited products on site, like antibiotics or HGPs, can they still qualify for Nhtc and or verified natural depending on which programs they are looking to do?
Yeah, so if they're on site, just as long as they're identifying them, if they have the hormone growth promotants of any kind, as long as they're in an inventory, like I'd mentioned earlier, that the auditor would help them fill out, just kind of keeping a running tally of how much they have on site. that would be sufficient. And then as far as antibiotics can be on site. We just care that they're in a secured location away from program cattle so they don't have the chance to be exposed to any of those prohibited products.
Thanks, Alexis. So kind of another question we get is talking about cows receiving antibiotics or, health or hormone growth promotants, excuse me. So does that matter? I mean, do the calves still qualify for those programs? What does that look like?
Yeah, so if the cows are receiving any of those products, that is all okay. And then as long as the program calves are not exposed to any of it, then that's all that we care about. So example of that would be, maybe there was a mineral or protein supplement that's given to cows that might have a prohibited product in it. Or maybe it's given to dry cows at a different part of the operation, not anywhere near program cattle. If they are on site, we'd like to know that and who it's given to. And as long as there's a process in place to show that program cattle are not exposed to any prohibited products, then that's the most important part. So if cows do receive a shot of antibiotics or they are using some type of sinking items during breeding, then that is okay, just as long as program cattle aren't exposed.
Awesome. Well, Alexis, those are all the questions that I have. Is there any other things that you would like to add to, give some producers some more insight on either verification or things that we can do to help them along the way, making this process maybe a little easier and more helpful for them?
Yeah, me personally, and I know some of my fellow ranch CVSs, we love getting on the phone and chatting with our producers to, any questions at any time that they might have throughout the entire process. We love to get on the phone and talk through those questions and kind of clarify some procedures with them. So all the questions that we get are good, and better questions ahead of time are always better than after the fact. And so we definitely like getting on the phone, establishing that relationship with our producers, and just helping them through that verification process. So we're pretty open book. We really like to help out all of our producers, and so yeah, any questions at any time. A lot of the ranch CVSs in our office can help any producer at any time.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Alexis, for joining me on this webinar series and talking about verification and kind of your role and how a CVS helps producers. If you guys have any other questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to our office. You can call us at 303-895-3002, or you can look us up on our website at imiglobal.com. So thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.